welcome to Read Your Comics. Today, I'm continuing the Reign of Supermen. If you are a longtime watcher of this channel, you know I've been doing the top comics of 1993, and these comics are all part of the top 300. I didn't get each one's specific positioning in the 300, but I did look it up, and every part of this story did land in that top 300 of the year. That's a pretty big testament, really, to the power of this storyline in a year when, like, Image was kicking up so high, and Valiant was flooding the market, and Marvel was pumping out books left and right, new X titles and Spider-Man titles constantly. But the Superman books, these 4 titles that came out weekly, maintained their position in the top 300 for the entire year. The Batman Nightfall story didn't even do that. Only about half of the chapters of that were in the top 300, believe it or not. So if you missed the first video, I explained how in the fall of 2022, I repurchased a set of The Death of Superman through Reign of Superman to read with my kids on a weekly basis in much the same way that I read it when I was a teenager. It was the 30th anniversary of the storyline, and I just thought it would be kind of a fun thing to do. Unfortunately, my kids already did know about the Cyborg Superman turning heel, but they didn't really know, if none of these characters were the true Superman. And in fact, initially they were going to lean towards this one being the real deal. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into that one. This one is Action Comics. It is the creative team of Roger Stern and Butch Guice, or I think he goes by Jackson Guice in this. This is a fun one because at the time the Justice League had I would call it the nobody team. We read a couple of Justice League issues and the Death of and Funeral for a Friend story, and most of the characters were unrecognizable. Guy Gardner was in there, and, he wasn't even a Green Lantern, he was a Yellow Lantern. Other than that, Blue Beetle and Booster Gold were part of the team, but other than that, there was characters that people kind of know today, but for the most part, you would not associate them as this is a premier Justice League team. After the Death of Superman, that team kind of disbanded, and it was going through a reboot of its own of some sort, and we didn't keep reading that. But Guy Gardner in that book would come into conflict with Superman because Superman was the big blue Boy Scout, and Guy Gardner was the, edgy character. They even played on that in the Death of Superman story, where there was a teenage boy who thought Superman was speaking to his school, and he thought Superman was lame, and Guy Gardner was the cool guy. And then Doomsday smashed his house, and he saw, how good Superman really was, and that Guy Gardner kind of got... Guy Gardner put up a little bit of a fight against Doomsday, but basically got just smashed. Anyway, in the Death of Superman, Guy Gardner got more of a respect for Superman too, because of how he fought Doomsday to his dying breath. So at this point, he's seeing that there's the 4 new Supermen on the scene, and he wants to go check them out because he's not sure if they're dishonoring Superman's legacy or not. So he's going to try to hit them up one by one. He's going to start with the Visor Superman. This Action Comics title is the one that is, kind of focusing on that particular Superman. Each title had its own one of these Supermen to watch. So that's the one Guy Gardner is going to start with. He's showing up in Action Comics, so that's the one he's going to talk about. And here it even recaps, Guy Gardner and Superman's, personality conflicts. So we're going to check in on the Visor Superman and see what he's up to. And he's stopping this criminal. Since Superman's supposedly gone, it's not as bad as Gotham was with the Arkham breakout, but there are definitely people looking to take advantage of Superman's absence. Unbeknownst to them, there's going to be 4 Supermen show up. The Visor Superman, who really should have been called, or was supposed to be called, the last son of Krypton. And in the last issue, we saw him show up at Superman's tomb and leave an empty tomb behind. So he confronts this would-be safecracker, and, that's a great shot. Butch Guice really does a good shot. Look at that. Look at the shadow on his face. That's a menacing-looking Superman with his silly visor on. This page was pretty good, too. In general, I thought this was, good figure work. You know, he's being yoinked. That's just a great shot. The menacing aspect of this Superman is much more violent here too. You see a panicked face with this hand in silhouette. Of course, he's wearing black gloves. Lois is investigating all the Supermen in these early issues. Here she's checking on a guy that we saw at the end of the Adventures 500 when they first introduced the character. And he's... Oh, no. This is the guy that he just caught in the safecracker. He didn't kill him, but he definitely injured him in an unnecessary way that Superman wouldn't have done. So Lois, of course, is conflicted by this because he does look like Superman in the face, touching in on the teenage Superman there too. So we're getting some cross-reference across, you know, the different books. I think this is Cat. That looks like Supergirl, but I think it's Cat. Cat Grant. Yeah, this is Cat Grant right here. Looks like Supergirl right there, but Butch Geist does a great faces. And Dennis Rodier on inks. If you don't follow Dennis Rodier on Instagram, check him out. He does a lot of cool videos inking some penciled work, and it's pretty amazing just to watch him work. I was really taken by this art in the second read through. I don't really remember it standing out to me as a teen at the time, but I really like it now. I love his, like, the flow of his panels, and, you know, he just does, like, cool angles and stuff. So this Superman, he returns to the Fortress of Solitude, and he's being waited on by the Kryptonian robots, and, like, his power kind of, like, wanes over time, so he has to go back and recharge. And while he's recharging, he sits there and watches the news all across. And here's this big matrix thing. I think this is kind of like the core of his power that's like slowly charging him up because he emerged from it too early, as the robots say. Over here we have the Metropolis Police and the Special Crimes Unit, and I think she might have just been a lieutenant. Captain Sawyer, but he promotes her here to something. And there's like some... I guess there was some chain of command. This guy has been promoted to commissioner, and he doesn't like that she's running this special superhero unit. I forget what they call it. And she's a captain, but yet she still has like some command over other people, and he's never really liked it. And he's like, I don't like that I don't like that you're a captain, and have these, like, you can order people around that are technically ranking beneath you. And so now I'm got the power to do something about it. So now you're an inspector. So he gives her a promotion. This is an interesting scene, but as we go along in this book, in this storyline, I don't recall this really, even in my second read through, this doesn't really amount to much more. But it's an interesting scene. I mean, she does show up, but this, like, aspect of her being promoted to inspector, you know, I don't really see how that pushed the story forward so much. Maybe just her character. Maybe it needed to be built up over time prior to this Death of Superman story. So basically she's put in charge of, like, finding out, you know, about the 4 new mystery Supermen. And even that's a great... Geist does a pretty good job on Superboy too there. He looks a little older than the way Grummett does him. So now we cut back to the Visor Superman, and he sees a fire raging. He's a little confused by the heat signature because it turns out it's just Guy Gardner trying to get his attention and lure him in. And this leads to a fight. And he's kind of like, you're not the real Superman, yada, yada. And the Superman is just kind of like, I don't have time for you with this. Pretty good action sequences here, too. A lot of fluidity in his body language there, being punched. Cool suit of armor he puts up with his ring. And look, he's already got a shut eye from being hit so hard. That's great. And they end up, like, landing inside a warehouse where there is some, like, illegal activity going on by... I guess it's Intergang. It's kind of the, you know, the mafia of the Superman books. And they start shooting at him, and of course it deflects off of him. And they decide to work together. And here's where this Superman is showing how rough he can get. As Guy Gardner watches on, and you see his facial expressions here, like, oh my gosh, he's like tearing him apart. Ooh, I can't believe that. Yeah, I love it. Because Guy Gardner, of course, he's the edgy character. So Guy, they have a discussion here about it, and Guy Gardner's like, I want to take on the other Supermen too, and he's like, no, I'll get to them eventually. You stay out of it. And there's like a little mutual respect going on there. And then they cut to the news. We always have to have like some TV news stuff going on. This was like a trope of the 90s in particular. And Guy Gardner more or less endorses the Visor Superman. And then even this Superman kind of questions the endorsement of, like, if somebody like Gardner is going to endorse me, are my actions justified? Am I doing the right thing by taking this more violent approach? So even he's questioning it here. So at this point, we're still kind of thinking, like, is this the real Superman? One of my kids was really on board with this being the real Superman. Next part, we're going to Man of Steel. And right off the bat, we're going to get a confrontation between two of the Supermen. Iron John versus the Metropolis Kid. Title bout. So back to John Bogdanov, who I said in the last episode I didn't love as a kid, but I've come to really respect him now. And the Death of Superman story, I was really like looking at his stuff like, wow, I really like this. And I was eager to get into these issues of Steel because I didn't love the art in the Steel book back in the day. It still has a little bit of stiffness and walking. Like this right here isn't great. Like the way he's holding the camera and stuff, and the way his kind of face is positioned. I guess, okay, that's like camouflage looking pants. For a minute there, I was like, is that supposed to be like hairy legs? Like, look at this. Let me get a little closer for a second. It's just that coloring, but I think it's supposed to be camo pants. So I was like, what is he wearing? So they have these guns. They call them, I believe they call them Toastmasters. And this street gang that has them is going to, rule Metropolis with these weapons. Unbeknownst to them, the other gangs get them too. Great splash pages. This is what I think John Bogdanov does great, is these big double page splashes, or even the single pages. Good body contortions going around. He's swooping in. Lots of motion. He's swinging the hammer and breaking guns. So he will fight rough like Superman does. But he does stop short of actually killing. He's got a camera in one hand and the crazy gun in the other. It's wild how he shoots these like railroad spikes out and can bend and break things, and then he turns the camera back on the news guy. Lex Luthor's plotting about how he can control any, if not all, the Supermen throughout the whole storyline here. So he's trying to devise a way to get the Man of Steel under his thumb. And they're already kind of exposing who he is. So this White Rabbit character, kind of a female kingpin in a way. I'm always confused what they're doing with her. Like, is she white? Is she African American? They color her white sometimes. They color her a little darker other times. He definitely draws her with a full-figured body, which was in the 90s not typical of how white women were drawn. She's not really that interesting, other than her looks, I guess. It's an interesting panel of Jimmy right there. Jimmy looks a little older. He does draw Lois looking pretty stout, like Linda Hamilton in Terminator. You're always getting the preview of the next issue coming up. Well, this isn't the next issue. It's 2 weeks away. So this Jeb guy shows up, and he's trying to move in on Lois post Clark's death. Word gets to Superboy, to the GBS station, to go see what's going on at this area where Steel is fighting these gang members. They're in this is a Daily Planet helicopter, actually. In flies Superboy, and he starts drawing the fire, which accidentally makes it hit the helicopter that Lois is in. It kills the pilot, and she comes flying out. and Steel is able to catch her. So Steel saves her. He takes her down, trying to convince the world these other guys are trying to convince the world Superman. What about you? I never said I was Superman. And then he just flies off. So then Superboy's given like a little interview to the press with the police, and Steel comes and yanks him up and essentially dresses him down for being reckless, because he came in and he drew the fire, which led to the helicopter getting shot. Could have killed Lois. And at first he's standoffish in the typical teenager way. He pushes back, but then as soon as he goes away, he starts thinking about it I do think, don't I? I am careful, but I am careful of anybody, but am I careful of anybody but myself? So, I mean, it really makes him think. So now we're getting Steel as kind of the mentor. And I want to point out too, because I keep saying it about Superboy, while I do love both of these pages, and I love their layout, and I love the basic figure work going on, Superboy is definitely looking more like a Superman in this. So after Superboy flies off, Lois is getting this impression that maybe he does have the spirit of Clark and Superman in him after all. Then while he's standing up there, one of these Lex Corps, private police people come up and, want him to talk to Lex. And Lex is kind of like, hey, we can operate together. Let's work together. And of course he's like, no thanks. And not only does he not know, he gives him the tip of the white rabbit. Yeah, he tells him where the white rabbit is, but he's doing that trying to get him to work together. He's like, thanks for the tip, but when I get the rabbit, it won't be because you told me to. But if I recall, Lex is playing the rabbit and Steel at the same time. So he does go to confront her. She's trying to be very seductive to him. But she immediately recognizes him, and they apparently have a history together. Pretty sensual right there. So here's his starting to have a flashback. And this is their history. They have a romantic past. They both work for the same company, and he developed those guns, but then realized, come to find out, she was selling them, I think, on the black market or something. They ended up being used in some kind of guerrilla war where a bunch of kids were killed. He starts feeling bad about being a weapons developer, and he thinks he's taking the plans with him. He tries to destroy the plans so they can't be in production anymore and leave the company. Unbeknownst to him, she had already gotten the plans and started manufacturing them and became this crime kingpin herself. And this is where I'm they're drawing her as African American here and there, and now she has kind of white skin, peach colored. I don't know. She's trying to convince him there's just as much blood on your hands too, and that's their kind of thing. And she blasts him with the gun, and he flies out into a conveniently placed gas tanker. Superboy, I think, was flying by to come apologize to him. So after he pulls him out of the fire, and his hands are hurting, and Steel's like, "Are you all right?" He's like, "Yeah, probably just psychosomatic blisters." And then he asks, "How did he happen to be there?" And he's like, "Well, I followed you because I wanted to apologize." So you do have Steel kind of being the moral compass of the four Supermen so far. There's Supergirl being manipulated by Lex. All that's just pretty icky. This has one of the best covers of the whole set, I think. Very in your face, kind of plays on the tropes of Superman as the American hero. But he's got this 90s cyborg skeletal visage. I mean, and this is it's just in your face. That's about all I can really say about it. It's a weird issue, though, because so this guy is wanting to essentially fill the role of Clark at the Daily Bugle. And the whole issue is narrated by him with these one-page panels. Were illustrated by Dan Jurgens and Brett Breeding again. I mean, the whole issue is like this. It's just, a block of text, moving stuff out of Clark's apartment, having some closure there. And I don't know if I talked about it in the last one. The timeline for this is so weird because they said it was, even though it takes place over almost a year of Superman stories, the writers said that this is really only about 8 weeks of, comic book time. And he talks about wanting to do something that Clark did. And Perry's like, Clark wasn't just handed the job. He came in with the exclusive Superman story. You need to find something big. You need to earn it. So, of course he's going to be drawn to the 4 new Supermen, and he's going to the White House to see about something else. And there's a terrorist attack, or an assassination attempt on the president. Here's the Secret Service around the White House, and in comes the Cyborg Superman, and he just dismantles the terrorists no problem. I love how it's his heat vision just comes out of the one cyborg eye. I think these side views of the cyborg are always crazy when you can see right through his jaw. Oh, and he annihilates. That's a cool shot. That kind of reminds me of, there's a Gil Kane Superman cover that's pretty iconic. And the way he drew his cape, and that kind of reminds me of that. That's pretty cool, blast. A lot of energy coming out there. These screens showing. So the White House security sees him as a threat. So it's in the DC universe, guns and stuff, turrets pop up out of the ground and shoot at the people. You see his arm doing some crazy stuff. And I think his name is Troop, Ron Troop, maybe. Anyway, he runs out to give Superman some kind of code or something that basically has the system switch off, so it doesn't recognize him as a threat. And he comes in to the Secret Service, and they essentially just let him interface with the whole national security defense system, which is insane. I mean, even if they think he is the real Superman for a minute, they're just yep, here, go ahead. The world's secrets, the nation's secrets, and everything we know about everything. Just interface with it. It's a cool shot, though. The way he, connects to everything. Another side view looking straight through his jaw. And there he is, downloading all the information, nuclear codes, everything. Kind of ridiculous. And this guy's there, and he's got a bomb, and he sees it, and he melts it. I don't remember if he knew he had the bomb. And then in walks Bill Clinton. And the Cyborg Superman basically creates this communication device so that the president can contact him whenever he wants. And he finishes up the story so Bill Clinton essentially endorses the Cyborg Superman as the real Superman. And at the end, he turns in the story and he gets the job. Interesting. Superman is back. And it's the Cyborg Superman shaking hands with the president, who was Bill Clinton at the time. Pretty new Bill Clinton president, too. I think that election was 92, so this would have been his first year in office. All right. Now we're getting Supergirl confronting Superboy. Boy meets girl. Love these Tom Grummett issues. I'm going to say it every time. Get used to me saying it in every video that it's Tom Grummett. I mean, look at this. Superboy saving somebody running off a bridge, and then she comes up and kind of saves them. She showboats too. There's a lot of discussion, they always play him up as the showboater. she does it too. She does quite a bit of showboating herself. They set it down. Look at this, this panel. Teenage boy staring at Supergirl. And she knows. She knows what's going on. But something to always remember about this Supergirl, she's not a real, like, human. It's not that she's just not a human. She's not like Superman isn't human. She's not even like a person. She's not like a sex at all. She's the Matrix. But she assumes this Supergirl form in honor of Superman. Great facial expression there. A little bit of jealousy, maybe. She's like, you wish. The Deadpool character. Yes, I remember this guy now. I don't know if he'd been in things before or if this was his first time. His name is the Stinger. But man, he looks like Deadpool, doesn't he? And I always think, like, at first it's like, are they ripping off Deadpool here, or are they like kind of mocking Deadpool? Because he is a merc. Doesn't really joke around and stuff, though. I've got to go out the window. And it's this guy is like a sleazy. In fact, his name is like Sleazeman or something. And he's sending him after Superboy. But he really doesn't want Superboy necessarily to be killed. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the boy, not the TV set. So he's sending him after Superboy. But he doesn't want... You don't know who he's talking to. But he's saying, remember, the boy's all mine. The kid's mine. Here's Bibbo. He's getting the name tag for his dog that was supposed to be Krypton, but they didn't get enough. It was too many characters. So he's Crypto instead. And he punches the dude in the face. Dog tags, $3, 6 letters maximum. So he didn't like that. Punched him in the face. Superboy has been invited by Lex to come have dinner. You know what? I want to look back at something in that previous book. So Lex has his leg broken there, right? Did he have his leg broken at the end of this? Because we see him with his leg broken. And sometimes he doesn't have his leg broken. Can't really see him. No, he doesn't have a broken leg right there. Continuity error. Invites him to dinner. It's got Supergirl in this sexy dress. And they're trying to woo him to come work for LexCorp instead of GBS. And he's so taken by her. I mean, she's playing into it, you know? Like, we can work together. He's like, okay, you got me. Hook, line, and sinker. Another great page by Grummett. Just the whole characterization of, you know, her in the middle, him eating, he's chewing food. He's got questioning look on his face, or inquisitive look on his face. Lex even smirking while wiping his mouth. I mean, each panel has something going on. Nowadays, it's like they do talking heads like this, and they just basically like repeat, you know, each character's face, and it's like the same expression. Maybe like an eyebrow raises. So he leaves basically saying he's going to work for Lex. And then he goes to GBS to say, guys, I took a deal, but hey, we got you an agent. And look who it is. It's that one dude. And he has a little bubbly blonde daughter. How about that? And she's all smitten with him and like, you know, kissing on him and rubbing his head. And she's like, here. He's like, here, sign the contract. Okay, where do I sign? So now he's just going on a whim. I mean, this is like high school football recruits, like a big college trying to recruit a 5-star player in. And the kid's like, oh, I love this school. It's the best experience of my life. And then he goes to the next school. I love this school. It's the best experience of my life. Anyway, and Tana sees this is manipulative. And now she's even kind of like, no, I don't want to do this. We're going too far. So now they're having him transport this train to like a museum or something. That's a good shot, though. Really cool. Displaying his strength. It's like strapped to him, though, for a little extra safety. They do the whole, it's a bird, it's a train. Nah, it's Superman. One of them, anyway. And he gets attacked. So now we're getting the the mercenary guy coming back. The train falls, but he's able to at least catch it and stop it from falling on, buildings, but it does land and break there. And now we're just going to have a battle with him on the bridge. I mean, Tom Grummett even makes this... He just even makes this suit look good. Even though it has like some dumb straps on it, typical of the 90s, he just makes it look good. A Bibbo story of people in the bar arguing about which one is the real Superman. And Bibbo's like, none of them are. I know Superman. He fires him with the hose. There's his little crypto. They're under this bridge, and he's, I guess there's like a electrical wire here, like a cable car wire or something. He's able to shock Superboy and kind of get him down for a minute, but Supergirl shows up and distracts him just enough for Superboy to get like one good punch in. And then he realizes he's a little overmatched for taking on two of them. So he's like, I'm just here for the kid. I'm not here for both of them. So to make his escape, he shoots the bridge support with these things, and it blows up and crashes. And that's basically the cliffhanger of this chapter. However, we're going to get an outer space ship coming towards Earth. And what is that all about? So that's it for this month's worth of Superman titles. I was really engaged still at this point. The kids were super engaged at this point. It's fun to see the development of each character and their personality more, because the first issue we just kind of got like an introduction to them, but this one is definitely developing the character more. One of my kids was loving Superboy. They knew he wasn't going to be the real Superman, but they really liked him. They thought he was funny. They really liked Steel because they like him being that moral compass. They already knew about this, but they really think that this is going to end up being the main Superman at this point. So that's all I got for today, and I'll be back with the next month's worth of Superman books in my next video. Until then, read your comics.